Right, so hello Beth. So great to have you here. My name is Lucy Lynch and I'm Head of Education at Eden Smith Group. I'm welcoming Beth Burroughs, who is COO of HACE. And she can tell you a little bit more about that and the amazing work that they're doing towards prevention of child labour across the world. So this is our amazing podcast, which is called Behind the Data, and this series is about the future of work. So I'll let Beth introduce herself, and then we can go from there.
Hi everyone. Hi Lucy. It's great to be here. So as Lucy mentioned, I'm the COO of HACE, and we use data and AI to score company performance on child labour in supply chains. And we can talk about the definition of child labour and what that really means. If you'd like, sometimes it can be a little bit confusing, or people don't always know exactly what it means. I definitely didn't when I started at HACE. So I started 3 years ago. I kind of went through a bit of a weird career path through HACE. We are a startup, so relatively small, and I think that's a big reason why that strange path happened. But I started as a volunteer or intern looking at social science research, data research, various different areas across root causes of child labour. So what are the driving forces behind a specific child's situation and why they're in child labour? So that's where I started. I then became the Bangladesh country manager, and then moved on to head of data. And around that time, the company kind of pivoted with our new product, which is the Child Labour Index, and that's where we started scoring company performance on child labour. And the reason for that pivot was because we wanted to involve more stakeholder groups. So this is aimed at investors, asset owners, banks, anyone in the kind of financial services, financial markets area, so they can understand what's going on in their portfolio of companies, what's going on in their child labour in their supply chains, and hopefully that will help us to leverage the kind of power and influence that investors have and encourage companies to really make some meaningful change. So around that time that we pivoted to the Child Labour Index, I moved from the data function to operations. So I'm now the COO, and that means that I cover loads of different areas because, as I said, we're a startup, we're still quite small. So anything from PR, marketing, product development, HR, all of those things, basically the day-to-day running. So yeah, that's me.
Wow, amazing. And I mean, I've been working with you, personally for well over a year now, and you've been very kindly, supportive of the Nurture program and had an abundance of data science students from the University of Salford working on some great and very compelling projects over the last sort of like 12 months, probably almost like 18 months now, which has been, outstanding, and giving them some real life industry knowledge before they graduate. So I'm very, very grateful for that input, which has been great for the program. And with that, the whole point of my series about the future of work is really just wanting to hear from different generations of people about what the future of work looks like. What does that mean to people? Why are people compelled to get up out of bed in the morning? Like, people from my position, like, I've got 2 kids, a mortgage, like I know what that looks like. And, but definitely, I had like a bit of a squiggly career. As an actress, I was a teacher, I worked in retail, I'm an account manager, went to recruitment, done like 10 million things. And now, in the middle of this 4th industrial revolution, working with academics and industry, never thought when I was at university I would have a job like this. And I kind of created it a little bit and had lots of flexibility, lots of autonomy. And, from doing this podcast and talking to different people, I've kind of seen that there's actually quite a familiar theme emerging from these conversations, where it seems to be that people are very interested to work for companies or build their own companies where they feel there is a need and a gap in the market, but not just from a commercial sense to kind of like, make a quick buck. It's very much about a long-term game of how can we influence things and how can we break down barriers. And I guess they're the people that I seem to just sort of like be a bit of a magnet to, and just go, wow, I'm just really interested to hear those stories, because it makes me think the world could become, a richer place in terms of what people want to contribute, but the different ways that they go about doing that. So I know that I think you were saying in a different conversation with me that, when you were at university, you were thinking about maybe traveling abroad and working in a very different space. Tell me about that.
Yes, so my undergraduate degree was in biology with a focus on ecology and zoology. And during that, like, we did loads of field trips, a lot of animal conservation, really cool places. And obviously, that's what I wanted to do for a career, because I'd had all these amazing experiences. And then I graduated right at the start of COVID. So in that June, as COVID started, and obviously those jobs that are built around travel kind of dried up immediately, and they're already very, very competitive. You need all this experience, a lot of different hard skills, technical skills, which I just hadn't fully, been able to experience. And then I happened across HACE, the internship that I started. So I'd had a bit of a taste of like using quantitative data in biology for things like ecology and conservation, a little bit of coding, all of those kind of research methods. So I really enjoyed that bit. And then obviously HACE kind of combines a social science like child labour, human rights, with much more quantitative aspects. So that's what drew me to it. I started there and then realised I really liked that human aspect that I'd never really appreciated at university. I was always very animal driven. So then I started my master's part-time, which was in global urban development and planning, which is a bit of a mouthful, but it's basically thinking about how we can look at urban planning through the lens of ensuring that everyone in that urban area, or in a location, we looked at rural areas too, really, can benefit from the development of a city. Often we see like city development happening and marginalized groups just becoming more marginalized. So that kind of fed in a little bit to HACE. I made my thesis link to HACE because I was looking at human rights with forced evictions and informal settlements. So yeah, kind of all the three of them, like biology, urban planning and child labour, somehow kind of all fit together a little bit, but it's quite a strange combination.
Yeah, and I think the thing that I really love to engage with people about is that sometimes you think, when you're really young and you're starting out, like how did someone get to that place? And I think it's really important to have those conversations, to just open it out there and just say there are lots of different ways to travel, and it doesn't have to be a linear progression, right? How we also used to think. And I think the world is changing and you know, moving so quickly that I think also, you know, obviously, you know, working with Eden Smith Group, you know, partly, you know, a staffing business as well. And so wanted to kind of really think about when people are looking for jobs, like, you know, what are their motivations? What do they find? And also, what do companies want, you know, from people joining their business? So that also, I know that you're not hiring at the moment, but it's like in your ideal world, you know, how do you, or maybe you've not had time to think about this because you're just in position as COO quite recently, but have you had sort of like thoughts about how you'll engage with, you know, people, like, you know, what does job description, even things like that, will they be outdated and become kind of null and void? Like, what about those kind of things? Have you thought about that stuff?
Yes, because we've gone through various iterations of how we're going to expand if and when we get to that stage. So we've been thinking about recruitment for a while, and job descriptions are obviously one huge area. There's a lot of, again, further exclusion of already marginalized groups. Through, you know, we've heard a lot about language used in job descriptions, excluding women, for example. So I think there's a lot to do there. If we want to go down that route, then it's a lot of effort that we're more than happy to put in, but we want to. The beauty of a startup is that you can do things for the first time and make sure that you get them right. And whether we actually do get them right or not is obviously a question for a later date. But thinking about making really intentional decisions and how they can possibly affect whoever we're, you know, our target audience is, we really try and work a lot on that. So, you know, who is the best person to be writing our job descriptions, for example, and then quality checking them. We don't want just one person looking at them. We want a range of people, all of these things. So if we went down that route, it is one way to go. But I think what we've looked at for potential recruitment is really based on our network. We rarely put out, you know, even if we're doing like a volunteer role when we used to do them right at the start, like it was all very network based, and people had heard of us because they're in that sphere anyway, like looking at content online about human rights, and would often just reach out to us and want to work with us. And I think that is something that comes from being a mission-driven organization, is that you aren't necessarily struggling as much for a talent pipeline. So we tend to have enough applicants, and that means that we are obviously incredibly lucky, and we can really focus on what skills we want to look for. So we really focus on social science, qualitative skills, critical analysis skills, looking at something and not taking it for face value, and then the technical, you know, data skills, while they're, you know, really valuable and we do need them as well, we can develop those throughout the kind of training process. So yeah, it's not as easy sometimes or as straightforward as just hiring for, you know, a data engineer. It's a lot more around kind of the softer or more qualitative skills as well.
And that's really interesting. And like, so, you know, like obviously we had, if we look at, you know, doing the nurture program, you had lots of applicants and you did lots of interviews. And then I remember, like, you know, I phoned you and said, you know, you like there were 3 or 4 people and they were like your first choice people and they've all said yes. And you were just like literally going, oh my God, that's so amazing. That's so great. And we just can't wait. And it's like, you know, getting that buy-in, you know, creating those relationships. So we talk about networking and relationship building, we talk about our brand, you know, all of those things that sometimes you think with companies, are they spending that time, in the right place, and putting their resources in the right places. And I think that really speaks for itself. It's about people wanting to work for companies where they've got a purpose, they know what they're doing, or what the end, I guess, remit of their job is, but finding a way where they feel purposeful, feel, kind of valued. And I think I was just like thinking about, there was I don't say the name, but it's just somebody on LinkedIn, and they were posting that they were looking for people, and they said, actually, we never do job applications. We don't even need a CV. We just want you to tell us about you. You can do that in any form, if it's a video or it's this or it's that, whatever you want to do. And I always thought, companies or, startups, usually startups, that would be like, you've got a cool product that someone wants, you've already got the hook, and people buy into that, right? It's almost like watching an advert and you go, oh, I really want to work for them. I always wanted to work for IKEA because I just love the stuff, and just thought, oh, that's great. Maybe that's not the best example, but anyway, I'll just give you that as a thing anyway. But it's like, I think, if you've got a company that's doing something great, then I think you're far more likely to get great applicants, right? But they'll come in organically. And I think that's also, part of the training that I offer to my nurture students is this real emphasis on building your own brand on social media platforms, because you never know where you're going to grow at an exponential sort of like rate, and it's like the world of technology is moving so quickly that, you could start off at a humble graduate like yourself, a couple of years ago, and now, or 3 years ago, and now look at you, like you're there, and it's incredible. And I know obviously you've worked extremely hard and diligently and long hours and put in all the graft to get there. And obviously, I know Eleanor, and you're obviously a great combined team, like a force to be reckoned with. And so it's super energizing working with you. And I think people that come into contact with you as well kind of take a hit of that energy and go, yeah, I really want to be part of that. And I think, from a kind of directive level, like future of work, just wanting to, our audience are listening about what things you want to bear in mind, for attracting talent, and how does that equate to getting good quality people that don't also just jump ship, at the first offer, because you can work in a business and you spend so much time also training them, inducting them, getting them into that, and then maybe 3 months later they get a better offer. And then I think, and you think it's such a not a waste, but there's a lot of money and a lot of resource, time, energy that's then just having to start again. How do you think also companies can retain talent?
Yeah, I think that's a great point, and something that I hear a lot. People, especially tech companies, are struggling with the retention rather than the attraction. Something like, again, a startup is very difficult because you're nowhere near as stable as a larger organization. So job stability isn't always something that you can offer for retention. So we try and think about really positive alternative ways that we can encourage retention. So we work a lot on our kind of employee benefits in quite a collaborative way. So they're as flexible as we can make them, tailor them to each individual person. Again, it's kind of that side of it is easier in a startup because there's only a few of you. So that's really nice. It's a part of my job that I really love. And generally making someone feel valued. So the way a lot of people in my network over the last 3 years before HACE got funding and, you know, a little bit more established in the market, if you've not worked in a startup, it's quite difficult to understand why you would work in a startup, because it just seems like instability and like, you know, working too many hours, all of these things. But once you're in it and you feel the value of your own, you know, your could be 50% of a business, and that really does, if you've got the right mentor and the right employer or the right founder, it can really add so much value. Personally, I stayed at HACE because Eleanor, who's the CEO, had, I don't know how she had faith in me, but she did, because this is my first like corporate job. As I said, I was straight out of uni, so I didn't have any work experience apart from retail and hospitality and like volunteering. But like just giving someone a chance to do a task that, you know, they don't have experience with, they might end up doing it wrong, and pushing them a little bit out of their comfort zone, is how I grew. And the reason that I wanted to stay, because every single day was different. People say that all the time, but it really was, and still is.
Yeah.
And I can kind of choose my own, I can find things that I'm interested in, and, you know, I can propose this is a valuable thing that we should be doing for the company, and I can do it. I can teach myself to do it, and I can bring that value to the company. And that's like immediate gratification. And you can see the change that you're making in the company every day, because like I said, you could be half of the business. So all of those things, I think, make up, for me anyway, they made up for the relative instability of the job. But it's really not for everyone. And yeah, I think sometimes it takes working in that environment to realize that it isn't for you, or it is for you.
Yeah.
So maybe that's, you know, another reason why like employee turnover in a startup can be quite high. But
yeah,
I would recommend it to anyone that is curious, because it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, definitely. And I think maybe it's a bit like Marmite, right? You either love it or hate it. And
Yeah, exactly.
I'd worked for, you know, charities and corporate before, and then I went to a startup, and I'd never done it. And then I was like, oh my God. And then building a business in a business, never done that before. And then you're like wearing lots of different hats and lots of things keeping you up at night, worrying about stuff or thinking about stuff. And oh my God. But I think I just learned so much more than I ever would have if I'd stayed in corporate life. Because this, for me, definitely, I feel like there's a sheer strength of creativity that just you can just unleash, and it's like there's the power to like say like have a yes day, like, you know, within reason. You know, our CFO would be like, probably not, no, Lucy. And you know, I learned some great things, like, you know, from, you know, the CEO of like Eden Smith, like not every idea you've got is a great idea, you know, learning to kind of really fine tune those and go, just because you thought it doesn't mean it's going to work or it's going to be a good idea, you know, having this safe space to pitch stuff and, you know, go, oh, okay, yeah, that's not going to work right now, or the time is not right, or it's just not the right product to take to that market. But, you know, being able to be in a space where you can get that feedback and then just go back to the drawing board. And I think you're right, it's the thing about resilience as well, about being able to kind of be battered down a bit, but then come back up, and being held in a space where you can do that. And it's okay. You know, this whole thing is this expression of like failing forward, right? And fail fast or whatever. And day one and all these little things that we tell ourselves, yeah, we're going to do this. But basically, I think scrap all that. It's really just about, I know Steve Jobs will probably hate me, but it's like, yeah, ruined his book. But it's like, but you know, what I think is that you I think working for a startup, it's like having a really deep anchor, right? And you believe it, and you get pulled in different directions, and you've got a focus, you've got your North Star, and and you just have to kind of go with the ebb and flow, right? And there are lots of ebbs, right, that kind of make you want to, like stop, but then to be able to restart, relearn this whole thing of learning, unlearning, relearning. I think that's like startup magic, because if you can just tap into that, and that's also another big thing that I really try and teach the students about that. But you only get that by having that opportunity and having that space to do that. We're talking about resilience and strength, and I know that you did something quite amazing. We're going to end it very soon, our little podcast, but you did the actual marathon, the Manchester Marathon, and just wanted to give a shout out to the charity that you did that for, and it was just incredible. So just tell me about that.
Yes, so for some unknown reason, before I could ever run for even a mile, I signed up for the Manchester Marathon, which was a few months ago, and it went surprisingly well. But I ran for a charity called Wood Street Mission. They are based in Manchester. Well, they cover Manchester and Salford, but they're based in central Manchester. And their model, it's like a food bank model, but for school uniform, school supplies, toys, bedding, general clothing, books. The way they work is really very like child focused. So they work a lot on how to deliver the services without making children feel singled out in school. For example, for being from a low income family, which is something that I often found at school. You'd be singled out of class and be like, Beth, can you come and attend this, charity event because you're from a low income family, out in front of everyone. Like, it's just the thought that they put in to how they offer these services is really, it's just amazing. And they've been going for over 150 years.
Wow.
Which is crazy. And they recently told me a very nice story that in the Second World War, there were these two children that got separated, and they individually started going to this. I think then they did food as well, food bank supplies, like they'd been separated in evacuation or something like this. They both went and then went back to thank the Wood Street Mission like 70 years later and ran into each other.
No, got goosebumps. Oh yeah, my God, how amazing.
So yeah, they're really like well established in the community, but relatively small. And if anyone needs or wants someone to fundraise for, they are a great option.
Amazing. That's so wonderful. Well, thank you so much for being with us today and talking about my company, HACE, and we're just super delighted to be partnering with you and helping you and working with you on your journey, and the wonderful work that you're doing and the support for the Nurture Programme. So thank you very much, Beth.